Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. What we're going to be working on is a beautiful Bob Ross style background. And we're going to create some mountains, and then you're going to have some options using some low poly shapes, whether that be from the low poly trees activity that you created, or you could use a similar extrusion method to create one of these little branchy kind of deals up here. But we're going to take some inspiration from this, and we're going to start out and talk about some mountains. So we're not going to worry about the clouds. We'll do that with an image, but the mountains, we want to have a basic structure of 3D, and we're going to make sure we define a background that's going to be the mountains. You're going to have a middle ground of kind of like the distant shore, and then a body of water separating. We'll talk about that later, and then we'll also have a foreground element. Once again, low poly tree is perfect there. So let's work on our background first. So over in 3D Studio Max, I have already set up a camera view, and I have one kind of shape that's going to be kind of mountainy, and we're going to talk about how to kind of create those and modify them, what we're going to do. So if you look, I have a camera created, and I've positioned basically a pyramid shape. And you can do a little bit of blocking out to start. I actually like to do this and build one element, and then copy it, and then we'll do what's called reseeding for a couple of these. But if I define a pyramid, that's not a pyramid, it's a tube. Here's my pyramid. So I'm going to make a pyramid that's a little bit larger. You're noticing that I have a lot of height, width, and length segments. Put those in the 20s or 30s. Okay, you don't really want to. I'm still trying height. You don't want to exceed much more than 50 on these because the mesh you won't see a difference, and it's just taking up space in the model. So if I go to my front view, I can see I have a nice big kind of pyramid type shape. I'll hop back to my reference image, and I'm going to actually start working on this main kind of craggy peak. Right here. So I'm going to put that so that it's maybe the peak is about 3/4 of the way up. Kind of get a little rule of third kind of concept here. So it's about 3/4 tall on the frame and about 1/3 of the way over. So I will go back in Max, and I'm going to move this over. And I might need to scale it up a little bit. So WER, scale, grab in the middle. And that's kind of about where that sits already. So I'm going to kind of leave that there as kind of my anchor. I'll get my other little mountain out of there in a second. Do this, select and move. There we go. So now that we have this kind of in place, I need to start making it look more mountain-like. And the first thing I'll do here is add a noise modifier. So that is in my modifier panel. I'm going to hit N for noise. And once I have noise selected, there's a couple things I'm going to do here. First off, I'm going to use the fractal option. So there's fractal, and then I'm going to start increasing the strength on my X, Y, and Z axis. So you're going to see all of a sudden it starts distorting this shape and moving it around a little bit. Okay, and we'll strength there. A little bit of strength there, so that the Z axis really starts moving this around a little bit. And also, we can start changing the roughness, and roughness will have some pretty dramatic effects as we look at this. So roughness, really going to start giving it. Now, watch out. Once you start getting into this territory, it's just not usable, because also it won't render correctly. A lot of these faces are now tearing. You're seeing the normal issue where you're seeing the inside of the model. So that roughness, I'm going to give it a little bit of a bump there. We're also going to use texture to do some of this, so don't worry that it doesn't have to look perfectly mountain-like. But I'll say maybe that roughness right there. And we can also control the scale a little bit and move some of this stuff around. So you just got to kind of play with it and find what numbers work best for you. Just kind of like Bob Ross, happy little trees. So that is going to kind of give us a basic kind of look at this mountain. And then what I can do is start moving some of these things around to make the rest of the mountain range. So I'll take this, I'll go to R for scale. I'll start nesting some of these things together. Now what's really cool about this is we can get a lot of mileage out of a couple mountains. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this mountain, and you're going to see there's a thing called seed. And in computers, actually, there is no such thing as a random number. A computer has a giant list of random numbers that have been pre-drawn, and then we use something like the millisecond of the time on the clock to draw from that random list. So every time we create with this, it's going to do the same thing if all these parameters match up. So what I can do is just change the seed. I'll just move this up, and you're going to see each time I do that, it's going to kind of randomly jump around a little bit. Pretty cool stuff. So you can do that to kind of give it slightly different looks. We'll like that one. So we're going to be more pronounced than others. So you don't want to just have the same copy of every mountain back there. So I can start moving these around, and also kind of top to my top view. And on my other monitor, I would bring up that reference image. So you can kind of use this to kind of paint your mountains in. You can see there's some things like this. Now also, another tool that combines very well with this is something like the FFD modifiers. So let me go back to that camera view. So I'll pick my mountain, and I'm going to go to drop-down list, and I'm going to scroll down to my FFD modifiers. FFD, my favorite, is the 4x4x4. We're going to pick this, and then we can start using these things called control points. When I turn the control points on, I can pick groups of these and start sculpting my mountain out a little bit, okay? So you're seeing, like, I'm going to take these, and I can kind of do that with it, or I can start bending the mountain this way. So you can see some of those are some things like that. So that's another way we can use that as control points to start sculpting the mountains around a little bit. And I can fine-tune my camera, F3, shade it. So this is how you're going to start working the mountains. Now notice I am not worried about this line right here. I'm going to make trees that cover that up. And we can do a few things with trees too. I would recommend using a low poly tree. And if you have not looked at the low poly tutorial, you might want to hop over there and start beginning that work. Remember how we transferred files from one computer to the other? We'll be doing the same thing here. Going back to my top view, I can start building my plane of water. And we're just going to leave that like that. And I'll move this down a little bit. I'm going to go to my camera. So there we go. So that's going to go all the way through. I might do something like this in my top view and draw the other beach on. So I'll just kind of do a line like this. Once again, I don't care about what I don't see. And I can take this and extrude it. That's not where you extrude stuff. You extrude stuff right there. I should be talking a lot more like Bob Ross right now, but sorry about that. And I'll give it just a little bit of an amount. I'll go to my front view, and then I can kind of fine-tune that shape so it's just sitting on top of the water a little bit. So the pink was the water, that's the land, and I go here, and I'll see that distant shore. And you can move it around as you need to. Once again, don't worry too much about those transitional points, because we're going to be covering a lot of that stuff up with things like trees. I can actually take that and even move it closer to the water, so it's just kind of barely implied there. Very good, and our trees will cover up this area. So your job for today is to sculpt this mountain range in and then perhaps build a foreground tree. If you get the entire mountain range done and you've not done low poly trees, go start that activity. And if you have done low poly trees, start bringing those in and using them to populate this area over here. We can do other shapes, by the way. These are not just good for mountains, they make great boulders. So I absolutely like using things like geospheres. These geospheres, the vertices are weighted evenly around the shape. So there's a geosphere versus a sphere, which is polar in its construction. So if I take this geosphere, I'm going to modify and add some noise to this, I can make a nice kind of boulder thing to go along the shore. And once again, Fractal is your friend with this. I'm going to pump these up. And you're going to start seeing that this is going to, and on these you can kind of also use scale and stretch. So that's kind of bouldery. I will go R, pull this out a little bit, increase my roughness a little bit. F3 helps me see that. And then I can take these shapes and start moving them. I'm going to actually change this up a little bit more. And strength needs to go way up on this. Z-axis as well. So I could take my scale and start building some things that will be distant shore pieces. Top view. Ooh, that's a little messy. I don't know if I like that, but we'll see how it looks. So this can be the big rocks around the beach here, so we'll see what that looks like. So yep, we're starting to add some variety. And leave your tech colors all crazy like this for right now. We'll work on texturing and blending these things and making it look really like landscape. The big thing right now is starting to match this landscape with what you have over here. All right, good stuff. I look forward to seeing what you guys create.